Mark Diaz, reading Arbol Verde, The Lived Experience of Chicano Claremonters. Claremont's darker relationship with its Chicano residents has often been hidden behind the beauteous veneer of the Mexican players. The Padua Hills Theater, founded by Herman Garner, facilitated dialogue between Anglos and Chicanos in Claremont from 1934 into 1971. The Paduanos, or Mexican actors, acted as cultural ambassadors of Mexican culture in America. While the actors were celebrated on stage, behind the scenes they were living very different lives. The young girls of the company lived in the Garner house, where they played dress-up with Mrs. Garner, and lived lives of blissful youth. The older teenagers and adults, particularly the men, were not allowed to live at the Garner house. Instead, they occupied a little-known neighborhood riding the L.A. San Bernardino county line, Arbol Verde. The city of trees and PhDs is less recognizable along its furthest border, just east of Pomona College, where Claremont's earliest segregated neighborhood was founded. Arbol Verde, or as it is sometimes referred to as, the East Barrio, was first founded by J.H. Brooks in 1910 as the only area of Claremont where Mexicans were allowed to buy land. The land was virtually valueless, the houses being built on the wash of the San Antonio Mountains. The arroyo landscape was dry, loose sediment, and would be subject to many floods, including being in the direct path of the infamous 1938 Claremont flooding. Nonetheless, it was better than living amongst the overbearing foremen of the citrus-packing neighborhoods, or nowhere at all. The people of Arbol Verde made the most of their circumstances. They worked a plethora of essential jobs. Besides the playhouse, they laid much of the stonework that would become Claremont College in the 1940s. And, in their own community, they expanded the cultural horizons of the city by building their own church, Sacred Heart Chapel, a pool hall, and several Latino grocery stores. Through their own efforts, they were able to take a neglected swale and turn it into a sanctuary for Latino culture in Claremont. However, the opportunities for success dwindled as the looming presence of Claremont College began to assert its dominance over the enclave. In 1963, the neighborhood was rezoned as semi-public, encouraging the development of an initiative to bisect the neighborhood with the paving of Claremont Boulevard. The heart of Arbol Verde, its churches and town centers were ripped apart for the building of the road. Similar to the division of minority neighborhoods in downtown Los Angeles by freeway, Claremont Boulevard discombobulated the neighborhood and forever separated the upland half of Arbol Verde from the Claremont side by a multi-lane highway. Unable to rejoin, the two sides, left weakened, were subjected to continued abuse by the colleges as land began to be bought up by CMC. Under the eye of the CMC president, Jack Stark, dozens of homes in Claremont's Arbol Verde were purchased with the sole intention of demolition for the eventual expansion of the college into residential neighborhoods. As buildings were bought and bulldozed, the community atmosphere and value of land were destructed. The damage inflicted on the community did not go unnoticed, and people began to rise up against the college monopolists. Longtime residents such as Al Villanueva, Ben Molina, and Pitzer College graduate Jennifer Jaffe began to form organized coalitions, namely the Arbol Verde Preservation Committee and the Arbol Verde Neighborhood United, to act as defenders of the neighborhood and advocates for its people. The people of Arbol Verde had an intangible connection to this neighborhood, built upon the principles of the American dream of coming to a nation, building a name for yourself, and owning a piece of its spirit. Residents had lived in the town their entire lives, some still laying claim to parents who were original owners from Brooks in 1910. For them, the land in Arbol Verde was their claim to identity as members of the American and the Claremont way of life. In 1982, their efforts empowered City Hall to rezone Arbol Verde as residential, thus protecting their rights to the land. But the neighborhood's land rights were not the only thing that they had to fight for. El Barrio Park was always an area of high importance for the AVPC, who saw it as the epicenter of the shrinking neighborhood. It served as a new heart for the community. In negotiations with the city, CMC had initially promised to lease the park to the residents for $1 a year, but quickly changed their minds after the neighborhood was rezoned to residential. Now, CMC wished to charge $40,000, a testament to their grievance. Begrudgingly, they were eventually convinced to relinquish half of the parkland back to the community, but not without one more act of defiance, a requested name change. Stark saw the name El Barrio as a signifier for minority-led gang violence. While the name change was rejected, this did not stop Stark from labeling it as Arbol Verde Park on all his paperwork. Although Claremont College surrendered its claim to the park, they refused to yield their long-term goals. By 1990, with more college-backed officials in city council, Claremont College was able to reclassify the northern portion of Arbol Verde as semi-public/institutional land. Now was Stark's revenge, as he had purchased over 80 homes in the neighborhood and began to wreak havoc, tearing down even more buildings, evicting more tenants, and further destabilizing the neighborhood. Entering the 21st century, the neighborhood is unrecognizable. Resulting from many years of protests, the houses still line Brooks Avenue, but the mood is somber. It is a shell of a neighborhood where, thanks to Stark's investment, many houses lie vacant. No parking any time signs swell the barren street, where every light is off. The silent neighborhood sits, waiting enigmatically for another person to leave or another house to crumble. Looking at the CMC master plan, there is additional destruction plan for the tiny neighborhood. The college plan illustrates that the houses of Mills and Brooks Avenue, north of Blanchard, will be completely obliterated to build a parking structure. Furthermore, the designation of El Barrio Park as Arbol Verde Park in their public relations brochure still stands. The appropriation of the park's name is no small act. It symbolizes the harsh reality of the present situation. The college still believes, as a white institution, that they have the authority to continually belittle minorities by misstating their names and utilizing government connections to undermine the efforts of democratic and fair discourse. Arbol Verde is lost. But it serves as a reminder for many small towns in America, proud of their ancestors' heritage and connections to specific cultures, that what they bring to the table is invaluable, that the mixing of cultures is the very foundation of this country, and to obstruct representation is the immoral act of big money players, which must be stopped. Thank you.